Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Bree, and not long ago, I did a video on Kevin Smith movies. And in that video, I talked about Mallrats. And I gotta say, I am disappointed in all of you assholes that didn't go see Mallrats in theaters, or buy it on DVD, or rent it on VHS. Shame on you. Mallrats is a fan-fucking-tastic movie and everybody needs to fucking watch the movie and send Kevin Smith $20 Patreon. Thank you for making that fucking movie and spread the word. Mallrats is fucking amazing. And I am so pissed off that that movie bombed and we he didn't really find much success until Dogma, which I'm not even going to talk about Dogma ever again. I'm over it. So, needless to say, today I'm talking about shopping mall memories, which is why I brought up Mallrats. I'm a child of the 80s, a teenager in the 90s. I practically fucking lived at the shopping mall. My whole life, my whole youth was at the shopping mall when I wasn't in school or doing, after school activities. Um, I've got a shit ton of shopping mall stories and memories. Um, I mean, I can't even pinpoint my earliest shopping mall memory. I know when I was like first or second grade going to the yogurt shop in the mall downtown, or not even downtown, I guess. Salina, Kansas, the old mall. We call it the old mall because a new mall opened up across the street, the new mall. And I remember going to the yogurt shop because in the back of the yogurt shop they had this fantabulous arcade, and I used to go there to play video games. And so, um, a good chunk of my shopping mall memories are walking through the gate, into the lobby, meandering through the hallways to the um video arcade where I would drop all my quarters into various machines of different qualities. Now, also because I grew up mostly in rural America, small towns, not even suburban towns, just small towns. Big towns by small town standards, but small towns by city standards, but also a lot of small towns, which I've already talked about in previous videos. You know, um, so I've lived in towns as big as Salina, Kansas, Twin Falls, Idaho, Kearney, and Hastings, Nebraska. But I've lived in a lot of small towns that you're not going to find on the map, like Jackpot, Nevada, Berger, Idaho. Yeah, find that one on the map. Milton Vale, Kansas. Um, Delphus, Kansas. Try to find that one. Bloomington, Nebraska, etc. I lived in a lot of small towns, like sub 1,000 population towns, sub 100 population towns. I'm talking small town, like villages. So going to the mall was a treat for us. It was like an adventure. This is a long way of me saying not only was most of my video arcade experiences in the mall, but a good chunk of my movie theater going experiences were in the mall because most of these cities did not, not all of them, but most of them did not have standalone movie theaters. Um, Most of them, the movie theater was in the mall. Now, this may have changed, in recent times. I don't know because I haven't been back to most of these cities recently, and I have no reason to ever go back to some of them or most of them or all of them. I don't know. But anyways, so a lot of times my Friday night or Saturday would be spent getting Friday would be get out of school, get in the car, go take the road trip to the mall, walk into the arcade, play some video games, go over to the movie theater, usually across the hall from the arcade, buy the ticket for whichever show we were going to go to. While we were waiting for the showtime, go over to the food court, eat some nachos or, a cheeseburger at McDonald's or, a Subway sandwich or whatever. Because back then the food courts had all your, name restaurants in them, your franchises. And then when it was showtime, go buy your popcorn, your snacks, your bucket of Coke, and go sit and watch a movie and have a good time. And then our Saturday was likewise spent at the mall, walking around, window shopping mostly, um, going into stores like J.C. Penney, Sears, Shopko, those kind of stores, Macy's, but also browsing some of the mall shops like, Fans was a mall shop, The Buckle was a mall shop, Spencer's Gifts, um, Hot Topic were mall shops, GameStop. Back then we had Software Etc. before we had GameStop. Some places had Electronics Boutique, which would later become EB Games, which would later get bought out by um, GameStop. And then we also had Radio Shack in most malls. I would spend a lot of time at Radio Shack buying bits and bobs, little connectors and wire pins and wires and cables and screws and screwdrivers and weird shit. I bought a lot of weird shit at Radio Shack. I loved going to Radio Shack. I'm going to do a whole video on Radio Shack one of these days. And then also stores like Walden Books. My very first Dungeons and Dragons book I ever bought was second edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook. I got at a Walden Books in the mall. I regularly shopped at Walden Books. Sam Goody was another mall shop I went to a lot. Sam Goody, back in the day, is where I would buy a lot of sci-fi, horror, and anime VHS tapes. Later DVDs, and then later, also video games and CDs. I bought a lot of CDs and cassette tapes from Sam Goody. And then there were like your local mall shops that would basically come and go. These would be like local clothing stores or sporting goods stores, or you had like Payless shoot. You had Payless sometimes in the mall, and then you had Foot Locker was a big one in the mall. I don't know if Foot Locker is even. I know Payless is gone, but I don't know if Foot Locker is still around or not. If it is, if it is, great, I guess. If it isn't, good riddance. I never shopped at Foot Locker. One, I couldn't fucking afford it, and two, they never had anything I was interested in. I don't need ball players on my fucking tennis shoes. I'm good with the dollar store shit that I got at Kmart. Because I was poor. But we did a lot of window shopping at the mall. So it would just be walking around and a group of teenagers, walking around, touching things, trying things on, just browsing, and then getting chased out of the store by the manager because, like, hey, if you're not gonna buy anything, get the fuck out of my store. That happened a lot. And they usually would get a middle finger or a fuck you, as we were leaving the store before security would escort us. Bought a lot of weird shit at Spencer's Gifts. I never went into Hot Topic. I say never went into. I mean, I never shopped there. I mean, I had friends who shopped there, so I would go in with them. My sister liked to shop there, so I would take her there from time to time. But they never had anything I was interested in. So I do remember buying a lot of um, VHS breakdancing videotapes at this one store we had, this one mall shop we had in the Twin Falls, Magic Valley Mall. Was called, oh my god, it was called Mr. Rags, and they sold like skateboarding gear and street clothes, like street MTV street, like street clothes, skateboard, but basically skateboarding gear, baggy pants, um, uh, baggy jerseys that weren't ball player jerseys, but like, jersey style shirts that were like, bands or, you know, famous DJs that like the other kids in school didn't know who they fuck they were, things like that. And like I said, breakdancing videos, which is what I was there. And beanies and ball caps and stuff like that. But I was there for the breakdancing videos. Now, food court memories. We never none of the food courts I ever went to had a Jamba Juice or an Orange Julius or a pretzel place, whatever it's called, the pretzel place that everybody loves to brag about. We never had those. We just had your generic, we had like kiosks, just little kiosks of like, you had the McDonald's kiosk, you had the Taco Bell kiosk, you had the fucking um, Subway, Subway, famous sub sandwich shop. And then you would have like a local restaurant, some local restaurant in town would have like a mall kiosk, to 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 get extra money, from the teenagers. And then sometimes you would have like, the snack bar, that sold like nachos and, chicken fingers and stuff like that. It wasn't like a established restaurant. It wasn't a chain restaurant. It was just like, the mall ran it or whoever ran the food court ran it. So we had a lot of things like that. And I talked about the yogurt shop. I don't know what it was called. We just called it the yogurt shop because it's where we would buy yogurt and then go play arcade games. Um, which was an interesting arcade I'll have to talk about one of these days because it's the only video arcade I've ever been to in my entire life where the machines don't take quarters. They took tokens, which I am not a fan of at all. Um, because you got to put your money in a machine that spits out tokens instead of quarters that you can only spend at that arcade, which sucks because you can't go poking your finger in the payphones and the laundromat and things like that to collect quarters to go to this arcade because they wouldn't take your quarters. And you couldn't give your quarters to the counter to trade them for tokens. You had to put a dollar bill into the machine, which was bullshit. I hated that. So that arcade was not, they had good machines, but it was not a fun experience because of the token situation. Um, which I was not a fan of. And then we also had like, there was always like, it wasn't like a Pizza Hut or a Little Caesars, but there was always like a little food court kiosk that sold pizza by the slice. And sometimes this would be the aforementioned snack bar. Sometimes it would just be a pizza place. Sometimes a local pizza restaurant. Sometimes just a little pizza stand in the mall. So I ate a lot of pizza as a kid, obviously. um, Later, well, we also had a KB toy store. That was another one I think I forgot to mention, which I bought a lot of toys from KB because we did not have anywhere I ever lived a Toys R Us. I've only been inside a Toys R Us once in my entire life, and I had to take a road trip to get there, and it was to buy a specific Transformers Toys R Us reissue Generation 1 action figure. It was the G1 reissue of Jazz, which you could only buy at Toys R Us, or you could buy it from a scalper on eBay, but why the fuck would you do that? I don't know. Probably would have saved me money versus taking a 3-hour road trip to get to Boise, Idaho. But I digress. What are you gonna do? One thing I remember about shopping malls, um, in general, is they always had like the play area in the middle of the mall somewhere. And they always had like benches set up, like the little rest area where you could sit and, catch your breath or whatever. And a lot of times they had aquariums, that you can go just stare at the fish. And a lot of times they had like a little miniature park inside the mall, that had benches and trees and shrubs and stuff, which was kind of weird. And they usually had those like um massage recliners that you would put a quarter in or a dollar or whatever, and it would massage your back. So you had those, you know. A lot of times, malls were sensory overload because you had out in the main mall area, in the mall hall, I'll call it the main wandering area. You had the intercom playing music, but also blasting like announcements, like, "Hey, run over to Sam Goody in the next 15 minutes, and you can get XYZ 50% off." Shit like that. Or don't forget the Easter Bunny is coming, things like that. You would have announcements playing over, intercut with the song. So, like, they would be playing a song. You'd be in the middle of She Blinded Me with Science. And, like, right when it gets to the good part, you would hear an announcement like, "Hey, go over to the snack bar and get your nachos for $1.50 and a Coke," whatever. Shit like that. But also, each individual shop, with almost without exception, had their own radio station playing. So like the skateboard shop would have a lot of punk rock and like alternative rock and ska playing. Um, Spencer's would usually have like a lot of creepy music playing. Um, KB Toy Store was usually just like top 40 pop music. A lot of your like the Buckle and Anchor Blue, those kinds of stores would usually have like your generic, mix radio station that would just play random shit, like a random song from the 70s, a random song from the 80s, a random song from today. But it was always like, I'm going to say radio songs. Not the top 40 stuff that kids were into, and not like the classics that people knew. It was just like weird shit that only played in those stores, which was really weird. And like every store you went to had like a different radio station playing, so it was like sensory fucking overload. And you had a sea of fucking people. You were usually shoulder to shoulder bumping into people as you were walking around the mall. They were usually playing like hair metal and 80s hard rock in the video arcade. That's what you usually got at the arcades. And hip hop would usually, like modern hip hop or whatever, would be playing in like, Sam Goody or whatever. So it was like you were just like hearing like 30 radio stations playing at the same fucking time while you're walking around a sea of people, and it was a goddamn nightmare. But it was also fun. It was like I said, it was an experience. It was an adventure. Sometimes you would pop into a jewelry store or like a Claire's, like a little like a Claire's or something, just to get away from the noise. Just to or you'd walk around Macy's, just window shopping, just to tune out the noise, because Macy's usually just played elevator music coming out of their intercom system, which was like peaceful, I guess, but boring too. It was like, how am I supposed to get excited to shop here when it's just like fucking elevator music? I guess it was boring shit. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about malls. Um, by today's standards, they're not as um, amazing as they were back in the 80s and 90s. A lot of the video arcades are gone. A lot of the attractions are gone. Um, Radio Shack, Sam Goody, Walden Books, KB Toy Stores. A lot of the staples are gone. So, like, your reason to go to the mall is diminished. And a lot of the food courts are subpar these days, if they even still have a food court. If you even still have a functional, I'm using functional in air quotes here, mall. Because I've been to places that don't have functional malls. They have basically dead malls. Um, that don't even hire janitorial staff to fucking clean up the gum off of the fucking park benches. They're that poor. So stay away from those malls. Don't go to a dead mall. That's not an experience you need to have. So malls are by and large a thing of the past. they're still out there. There's still a few stragglers that are holding on to dear life. But by and large, they're specialty shops, which means they're overpriced. And a lot of times it's stuff, sometimes it's stuff you can't get anywhere else because, like I said, they're specialty shops. But again, it's overpriced. But a lot of times it's just like the same stuff you can get at Walmart or Target or fucking anywhere else. So there's no point to actually go into the mall anymore. The movie theaters are now in cineplexes, usually in little shopping plazas or standalone, cineplexes. They're not like the cornerstone of your shopping mall anymore. Shopping malls are mostly dead. There's still a few out there. We're fortunate here in Twin Falls that we have a semi-functional mall left. It still has a subpar food court, but it has a food court. Like I said, most of your staples are gone. So what you're left with is like Hobby Lobby, which I will not shop at. And yeah, the movie theater's still in the mall, but like I ain't got the money to go to the movies. I'm just gonna watch whatever I can get on Amazon Prime because I can't afford the movies. So for me, I don't have much incentive to go to the mall. I don't have the nostalgia. They still have a video arcade, but it's like games I've never heard of. Most of them don't even look like video games. They look like just blown up mobile games, which is like, I can get this on my phone for free. Why would I drop $1 or more into playing 30 seconds of a mobile game I can get on my phone for free? It's just not it's not the same experience we had as a kid. So yeah, it's still there. It exists. It serves somebody in the community, just not me. I am no longer the shopping mall demographic. Um, Partially because I can't afford it, and partially because like all the shops I used to go to are gone. So I have no choice but to go to eBay or Amazon to get the things that I used to get at Radio Shack or Sam Goody or KB Toys or whatever. Stay cool.